All right. Wow, I'm so excited. Does it show? So for those that don't know me, I'm Craig Wiener, and I'm joined by two amazing people here. To my side is my partner.
Suzanne Fagel.
And I'm going to go ahead and introduce the next person in case you don't know him. So this is Karl Dawson, and we're just thrilled. This is our biannual Tapping Out of Trauma free webinar that we put on to really educate healing arts practitioners, and especially tapping practitioners, on different aspects of working with trauma. So I want to just tell you a little bit about Karl before we get started. Karl Dawson is one of the original 28 founding EFT masters trained by Gary Craig. He's also most well known, I would say, as the creator of the EFT technique Matrix Reimprinting. As the director of the EFT MR Academy in the UK, he's trained over 3,000 practitioners in Europe, America, Australia, and Asia, around the world. As an international self-development speaker, Karl has presented at conferences alongside amazing people like Louise Hay, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, Rupert Sheldrake, David Hamilton, Carolyn Mace, it just goes on and on. He's a Hay House best-selling author, co-author of Matrix Reimprinting Using EFT in 2010, that was translated into 14 languages, and the book co-authored Transform Your Beliefs to Transform Your Life in 2014. So, I just have to say, as having worked with Karl as a Matrix Reimprinting trainer and having known Karl over the years, I couldn't be more excited. He's amazing, and nobody better to talk about the subject that we're going to be talking about today, which is the power of beliefs and their connection to trauma. So with no further ado, hi, Karl.
Hey, Craig. Wonderful to be with you and see you again and talk to you, and great to meet Suzanne.
Yes.
And be part of this, and the great work I know you do, and how popular this course is that you run twice a year. So yeah, brilliant.
Thank you.
Let's go.
Let's get started. Suzanne, why don't you kick it off?
All right. So first of all, for those folks who are listening and who don't know what Matrix Reimprinting is, can you just give us a little bit of a brief description about what it is?
Of course, Suzanne, and I'll try to keep it brief. Okay, this is that. Okay, so like EFT, it's energy psychology. It's all to do with meridians. The difference, I would say, is with EFT, you have your trauma. Yeah, and as we all know, doing EFT properly, it is about going from the problem to the specific events. So with EFT, you look at the memory, you tune into it, you re-experience what happened that day, and you tap to clear the trauma. With Matrix, as I like to say, we miss out the middleman. We don't bring the trauma back into ourselves. The way I understand trauma now is that in that moment when we freeze and part of ourselves splits off to hold the trauma, with with Matrix, we imagine literally sending our consciousness back in time to the moment of trauma, and we work directly with what we call the echo, that younger self that was traumatized, stuck in that moment. So because of that, it's still EFT based, but it does change everything and the way we work, and and the things we found out due to this process. It is fascinating, and I'm sure you'll agree where we get to. And one of the big things was about the understanding of the importance of the beliefs that we make in that moment of trauma. And I think that's going to be our main topic today, isn't it? The belief side.
It is. That's great. And you managed to keep it short. I'm not quite sure how. And I just got to say, also self-disclosure, Suzanne and I are huge advocates of using Matrix Reimprinting for trauma.
Thank you.
As a gentle trauma technique. Of course, amongst other EFT techniques as well, but it's one of our go-to techniques, and that's why we love having you here. So, in our course, we work really hard, and our mission is to teach and support tapping practitioners to be well prepared to handle whatever a client reveals, because you never know what's going to come up. We're not going to go into the scope of practice right now, but we'll just say that to be prepared for whatever they bring forward. It seems pretty easy for most people to have compassion for somebody or for themselves, with violence, with fire, with earthquake, with intense things that have happened. It's easy to be compassionate and understand the implications of large traumas like that. But not all kinds of traumas are those kinds of what we call in our language big T traumas, right? So we'd love to hear a little bit about the circumstances that are lesser in intensity or lesser in the way that we think of it as a category as traumas, but nevertheless still have long-lasting effects on somebody. I often say in a training, big T traumas don't have bigger effects. Little T traumas don't have smaller effects. It could be exactly the opposite. So I'd love to just have you hear a little bit and share some about that.
Okay. Well, when you came over to England last year, I love the way you described the difference between the two. It just very succinctly epitomizes, big T is your sexual abuse, physical abuse, earthquakes, tsunamis, car crashes, war scenarios. And then the small t is, the traumas weren't huge, and I'll give you a few examples in a second, but you made a decision. And it's the decisions and beliefs that you make which do ultimately cripple your life and have far-reaching consequences. So, some could be just a parent saying, go away, I'm busy, you stupid child, I've not got time for you. Simple as that. It's all relative to age. It could be in a classroom, the teacher saying you're stupid, you can't do this, getting a child to stand up and speak in front of the class when they're not resourced to do so, they don't have the confidence to do so. It could be being excluded from your friends, saying go away, you're not part of our group. Just about any situation. And what I liked about your explanation is with big T trauma, that really is a threat to survival, where small t is a perceived threat to your survival and your well-being. And that's the difference. And I remember when I first started as a practitioner, way back in the early 2000s, thinking that, people would come with these massive problems and we had to find these huge traumas to help them, recover. But what you quickly find is that quite often people can have beautiful childhoods, perfect childhoods, great parents, supportive, loving, great schools and everything, and they can have major problems. And it all comes down to kind of, well, you could say the luck of the draw, but I don't believe it is the luck of the draw, is what are the beliefs that you hold on to and create, especially in the 0 to 6 years, when in that subconscious state of delta and theta, we pick up decisions there. And what can start off as quite innocuous decision, like, I'm not as good as other people, or, we think of hundreds, the world's dangerous, I can't trust people, men are dangerous. From there, we spend our lives attracting, creating, and looking for proof of these beliefs. So as we take these through our lives, the repercussions get bigger and bigger, create more and more stress. So in many ways, Craig, I honestly have come to believe now that the repetitive small t traumas can actually have much a longer lasting, bigger damage than the big T traumas. In many cases, that's what you'll find. The big T traumas, PTSD and phobias, and it creates problems. And we still make decisions in the big Ts, but they tend to be isolated. You don't have a car crash every day. You don't have a tsunami every day. So it's not a very strong field. We don't repeat it often, but with the small T's, things like I'm unlovable, I'll be rejected, you could literally attract, create, look for proof of that situation every day of your life. And as it globalizes the problem, as we add each one of these into the subconscious, the problem gets bigger and bigger, and the resulting implications and how we react to our daily life, the problem gets worse and worse. So they are huge. As I'm sure you and Suzanne, you understand and you work with all the time.
Yeah, thank you for that.
And they, like you said, just one negative belief that came about from maybe an incident of standing up in front of a classroom when you weren't resourced can set up in all arenas of your life about not being able to come forth and meet people.
Absolutely. So, yeah.
It just brings up, I was with a client yesterday who admitted that that anytime something shows up physically, he hates going to doctors. Okay. And so we're talking about it. Where did it come from? Oh, I don't know. I just hate it. And he goes, I think that almost every time I hear there's something might be wrong with me, I think I have cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we're like, where does that come from? We ended up in a discussion where basically it ended up, he's 10 years old on a bus. A kid says, you have a lump on your neck. He ended up having an abscess, etc. but it was because of the comment and because of things the doctor said, etc., that ever since then he avoids doctors. He goes into a panic thinking anything that's wrong is cancer. And he goes, it's like I can't control the thinking. I know it's probably not, but there's a part of me that can't not think the worst. And so we look at that because it started on a school bus with a kid saying, hey, you got a lump on your neck. And there was something there that needed to get taken care of. But like you said, sometimes those small things have the greatest of implications, especially when there's repetition. So thank you.
Yeah. And it is strange that we seem to have each of us individually have certain beliefs that stick to us. Lots of things can happen. I mean, you just go through childhood and the vast amount of negative things that you come across with parents and teachers, but it's like that thing sticks to you. Yeah, and other things just rebound off you and have no effects. But once that key one's there, and we'll talk, I think, a little bit later, won't we, about the one belief, that yes, certain beliefs really stick to you. So you can have siblings, same family, same parents, same, just a year apart, same house, schools, everything, but they're all so different on what triggers them. One might be rejection, and all rejection issues, massive with them. The sibling, even twins, identical twins. The other twin, had no issue with that whatsoever. But for them, a different belief, triggers the hell out of them and creates all kind of problems for them. So, yeah, as we know, it goes back early. It goes back very, very early. And invariably, a lot of these, with the work that we do, we'll find it even starts in the womb. The first days of life, these beliefs are already there.
Yep.
There's a big topic.
Yeah. And that kind of segs us into, one of the things I know we're all really concerned with in terms of being effective, but also doing no harm, is that we work safely with our clients. We don't want any of our clients to not feel safe as they're going through this process of working with their trauma. And as they're working through the intense emotional effects and the body-based sensations. So do you feel that EFT and Matrix can accomplish that kind of release and still keep the person safe?
Well, absolutely. There is skills that need to be learnt within EFT and Matrix to keep the client safe. But yeah, safety is essential. As we all know, that rapport and safety you have to allow the client to go where they need to go ultimately. As they start off with a presenting problem, as we follow that back to these earlier memories, they have to feel safe to be willing to go there. With EFT, of course, we have the gentle techniques, the chasing the pain, tearless trauma, sneaking up on the problem, where we don't go diving into these large traumatic memories before we've done the work to take the edge off them by chasing the pain and just working with the body sensations, that energy of that memory, and by tapping on that without actually disclosing or going through the memory, it's taking all the intensity down, that when we do finally go through like the movie technique, that we've already taken the intensity off there. So this way it's going to avoid a lot of abreactions. With Matrix, it does tend to be a very gentle technique. And in many ways, more so than EFT. The reason being is with Matrix, we don't re-experience the trauma. We don't bring the trauma back into the client. We work directly with the traumatized echo. So some of the ways we create safety there is, first of all, we would have a strategy before we go in there. So we'd get the client to describe, exactly what happened, and we'll go in there and we'll say, okay, like we'll freeze people, we'll move people back, we'll put them on hold. So we can just go in there and work directly with the echo to de-traumatize them. We also have many techniques that they don't associate with the echo when they go into the memory.
Right.
That can be very painful. And that can, from a simple, just explaining that they want to be in the memory, but not in the echo being the younger themselves. If they can do that, it tends to be much gentler. It's not nice to see to revisit these memories, but if you can stay dissociated from all that emotion and just go in there, and we make sure that the client's fully resourced to be able to go in there, in a calm manner. So once we've tapped on the echo and the trauma's been resolved, then there's no of the negative feeling, the negative energy is not going to come back into the client. So it makes it very safe. Another thing we'll do as well is, we might have a client with a lot of severe trauma. we're not going to go diving straight into these big traumas straight away. You know,
Right.
we use what are called training ground memories. So like smaller traumas where they learn the techniques, you know, they learn how to go in there safely, how to create that, you know, how to be resourced to go in there, how to have a strategy when they go into the memory, you know, how they can go in there without associating with the echo. So that once they've learned that, then we can go into the bigger traumas. You know, we've got that, the rapport with the client, they know how to do it safely. And we teach our clients, basically, they become better clients. They understand how to do the techniques. So all that, you know, the combination of these skills makes Matrix very, very safe.
I love that idea, that phrase, use training ground traumas. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I use that in an EFT as well. That, you know, I'll give you an example. On a recent course, I had a Falklands vet, you know, which went back to the 80s. So you imagine you've got the, you know, best part of 40 years of trying to bury these feelings, you know, of all the addictions, the PTSD and everything that they've dealt with. The last thing they want to do is go and revisit all these memories from 40 years ago that they've been trying to keep away from for all these years. So yeah, you know, just working with them, you know, for 4 days on the course where we'd go to much more manageable memories, then they get the confidence and the skill, and then they're ready to go, you know, to these memories which they've been afraid of revisiting. And of course, you know, this is also very important if people have done a lot of talk therapy and relived events through talk therapy, and, you know, and got all the awareness and understanding of what happened, but not necessarily got the resolution that they needed, which of course we know that the EFT and Matrix gives us that, you know, that the subconscious resolution, the energetic resolution as well, which is so important. So you've got to be careful there. You know, a lot of people, they do not want to revisit these horrid memories. They've done it time and time again. And, you know, at times been re-traumatized by visiting the memories. So it's important.
You know, Karl, one of the things you're saying that I really like about this around the issue of safety is as you help the client build the skills to actually understand the tapping techniques, the other thing I think that creates safety is that the person gains some confidence in themselves. And that creates a sense of safety too, because they're like, I can do this.
Absolutely.
And that's just a beautiful thing built into both EFT and Matrix that I think is really makes it such an effective techniques.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I like that idea. In tapping out of trauma, we talk about titration. It's, you know, and Alina always talks about, like, when you're making hollandaise, and you don't just pour the butter in, you do a little bit and you make sure that you can handle that part, and you mix it in, and then you add another drop. And as we work safely with these training ground kind of traumas and work slowly, you know, for me, the thing that's like black nails on a blackboard is hearing about a practitioner asking a client in the first session, when's the first and worst time this ever happened to you? For me, that is not a trauma-informed practice. That is not safe. You haven't developed their resilience, their resourcing, their confidence, their ability to know that they can go to a difficult place and come back. So I just want to reiterate that and say thank you. I do want to kind of follow that up with a question and say, you know, we've talked about little T's and big T traumas. And what I'd like to ask as we start to edge more and more into belief is understanding, what do you consider more important? The circumstances of the event, the story of what happened, the narrative, which commonly how most people think about traumas, because it's the natural way to describe the sexual trauma, the abuse, that, etc. Versus the power of that and its long-lasting effect versus that and the beliefs or decisions that are created. Just wondering what you might have to say about kind of those two side to side. Not that necessarily one's more important, but I'm just curious your perspective.
Well, I mean, they both, to me, you know, part and parcel. It's basically in that moment of trauma, especially when we did freeze, the powerlessness, threat to survival, or as, you know, from our meta understanding, the UDIN, the unexpected, you know, the no resources and isolating. What's the other one?
Okay, so unexpected, dramatic.
Dramatic,
no resources. It was an acronym for a traumatic moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Well, I like simplicity of we were powerless, and it was a threat to our survival perceptively. You know, which is that back to that child saying, "Go away, I'm busy right now," can be a trauma for a child. So in that moment is where we make the decision. When we froze, we always make a decision. Now, to me, the trauma, all that energy locks in that belief. And that to me is why, 20 years after a loss, like say a bereavement, the person is still way up there, with the SUS levels of 10, because that trauma is locked in the belief. That's why, soldiers will go away for a tour. They'll have multiple traumatic memories, and they live in that sympathetic dominant state where whilst they're there, they're kind of okay from a trauma point of view, but then they come away from the source of the trauma, go into a parasympathetic state, and then all these memories are there, and the beliefs. So to me, it's important, and to me, with these events, the two things are critical and of just about every importance. It's not so much what happened, it's the trauma that you hold on to that locks the belief in place in the subconscious. Now, going through EFT with a movie technique, as we work through step by step and we resolve all the trauma, once the trauma's gone, it's like literally, and using the words of Dr. Robert Scare, as a trauma capsule, I think it describes it well. When you get rid of all the trauma, it suddenly allows a different perception. The problem with trauma, as we know, is that whilst the conscious mind, it's over and finished, it's in the past, to the subconscious, it's still happening every day of your life. You're still stuck in that moment. So what we find with the EFT going through the movie technique is once we've resolved all the trauma and all the various aspects, how often do you hear it's like, it's over now, it's in the past, I was just a child. The perception of it is different. I know they can see the belief that they made and the decisions from the adult perspective, not still locked in as a child or a teenager. So that in itself, let's just say the two are part and parcel. The trauma locks in the belief, you get rid of the trauma, you begin to see the belief from a different perspective. So in EFT, that's where the reframing comes in, and often clients will reframe themselves and see it very differently. Now, with Matrix, the important part is, and this is, I don't think we focus that much on beliefs in EFT. I do know hugely, watching Gary's DVDs, over and over again, hundreds of, tens of hours of DVDs. He rarely would focus on the actual belief or decision. It would come now and again, but it wasn't a focus point. With Matrix, you just see it crystal clear that when you have a trauma, in that moment you make a belief or decision. You have to. It's life and death. It's the antelope on the plains of Africa that's got one chance to learn that the lion will kill it. So with trauma, the belief goes in hardwired. You can never forget it for the rest of your life. The subconscious is a depository of everything that's ever happened, good, bad, and indifferent. But with trauma, it goes hardwired. And the problem becomes, as we know, once it's there, that moment that you're stuck in subconsciously, until it's resolved, because it's there in an uncompleted fashion, and the decisions we make, we will then, from that point on, we attract situations, we create situations, we look for proof of situations and how we react. As mentioned before, as we globalize these things, the reaction gets bigger and bigger, more fight and flight. And with Matrix being allowed to, first of all, the trauma resolution, where we take the tapping in to work directly with the echoes. But the first question we ask after that is, what was the belief or decision formed? And what to me is absolutely fascinating is that you can have 5 or 6 memories you go to, and what we call an echo stream, and the events themselves can be quite different, but the belief that's stamped on each of those is identical. So a quick example with a lady with a fear of flying. Fear of flying, I had no idea why. She said, love flying, never had a bad flight, suddenly terrified of flying. So we used one of our matrix techniques to go to tune into that energy, to take it back to a previous memory, and that was 9/11. That made sense, watching just on television, what happened at 9/11. But then we get there to follow it further back with the energy. We go to a 6-year-old that sat in the windowsill, waiting for her father to come home. He's gone to collect mother from the hospital. He comes home an hour later, He's carrying mum's things. He walks in the house and says, "Mum's never coming home. She's with the angels now." That's how the loss of the mother was explained. When I asked her, what's the connection between 9/11, the fear of flying, this memory? She said, "Oh, I know exactly what it is. I've got a belief that people will die unexpectedly." So basically, once that happens, you look for people die unexpectedly. You globalize it. So then all the problems start to escalate. And here's a phobia that she's developed. But there'll be many other problems and anxieties around that particular belief. So, that's what I find fascinating. So, trauma obviously holds it together and creates the belief in the first place, because you have to make that decision. But then the belief is what then controls your life.
Yeah. Okay.
So, in exploring this role of beliefs more deeply, Karl, what are some of the, common ones that you see frequently, like about yourself, about others, about the world? I'm sure that there's some that repeat a lot.
Well, as Louise Hay said in a book, everybody has the belief they're not good enough. And to me, I don't accept that as a belief, because as soon as anybody says that, when I'm training, I'm not good enough, I say this instantly. I said, okay, everybody in the room who feels they're not good enough in some shape or form, and every single person puts their hands up. So that one's just too global. We all do it, but it's in what way do you do it? So, some of the key ones, and the very destructive ones, feeling rejection, not lovable. I find they have a massive effect, and we can do those every day. That's the thing. You might have other beliefs like, I've got to do everything myself. I can't trust other people. No, those in fact can have some upside. They become independent and strong and don't rely on other people. Still downside, because you never let anybody in, you don't let anybody help you, but they're not as destructive. And it really is, you'll see certain beliefs are much more damaging to your life than others. On a world basis, you begin to see the patterns of certain beliefs and how that manifests in certain disease. Like, for example, everybody I've ever worked with, and we're talking scores of women over the years, especially some men, but scores of women with fibromyalgia. You always see in every single case the world is a dangerous place. And what I've come to realize in recent years, it's very specific to the person. If the world is dangerous to them, that's keeping them in the hypervigilant state 24/7 that eventually creates the adrenal and thyroid and taking the system down. But I've seen different ones like, it's not safe to move forward and not safe to go back in my life. It's not safe to express myself. It's not safe because when things go wrong, it's always my fault. So, these beliefs are very, very specific. We each have our very unique set of beliefs. A little while, I think when we talk about the one story, I'll give you the example of Diana's story and how specific her belief is and how it's manifested in so many different areas. So, the thing is that there are some more common beliefs, some less common, but everybody on this planet, has them. And simple as that. And they do, have massive effects. To me, it's everything. It creates, the work you do, your friendships, how you parent, how you react on a day-to-day basis. The partners you attract, the people you're attracted to. It all comes down to our beliefs. Who was it? Was it Candice Pearl, Caroline Myers that once said that your biology becomes your biography becomes your biology.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely true. It's Caroline Myers, wasn't it? Yeah. You see that absolutely. So to me, the focus on beliefs is essential. We've got an amazing tool in EFT, in the tapping, to resolve the trauma. But no, I think where Matrix really excels is with the belief, the understanding of the belief, the techniques to go and find the connection between memories, and how we can go back, very quickly to very early memories and find out, the connection between the various traumas, and then, have a technique to actually to change these negative beliefs by allowing the completion of these memories in a positive way, so that basically what these memories said, instead of saying, I'll be bullied, 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 and you have all these memories that support that. And as we know, the language of the subconscious, regardless of your individual modality, whether you're kinesthetic or auditory, the language of the subconscious is images to which we give meaning. You know, all these say, I'll be rejected. All these memories say, the world's not safe. Yeah. So by going in there and allowing to complete these memories with the different perceptions subconsciously, and that's the key thing, isn't it, Suzanne? It's got to be done subconsciously.
Yes.
You know, we can understand all these memories, we can talk through them and look at them and understand, but it's still going to show subconsciously, and that's where we have to change it. And that's the power of working directly with echoes, that we allow on a subconscious level to change our perceptions and our beliefs.
And two things that come out of that, as you pointed out earlier, and that Carolyn Mace did, especially in her Anatomy of the Spirit, is that the beliefs can come even in a more physical form than the emotional realm and into the physical realm and create actual disease.
Absolutely,
the other thing about the working with the beliefs in the matrix that's so amazing to me is it also taps into our inner wisdom, because then you ask, you know, the higher self to talk to this echo about this belief and how can you change it. And it's just amazing what can come out of the unconscious in terms of wisdom as well.
Yeah, it's all there, isn't it? Everything is there. Consciously, we're just so unaware of what, you know, all of these things, but the subconscious, it's all written there, and it's so accessible. You know, and when you speak to an echo, you get everything, things that you just had no clue on. You know, and they take you to, you know, another technique, the echo to echo. They know exactly where to take you.
Yeah.
Where consciously you have no idea. The practitioner would never figure it out themselves in a million years. The client doesn't even know themselves, but ask the echoes and they take you to the right memories. And then you can get back. Gary Craig always talks about getting to the core issue, and all the core issues with every single issue I've ever seen. Yeah, and since I've understood this, since listening to Bruce Lipton, where he said, before the age of 6, utero birth before the age of 6. I was like, oh, that's a problem. Because of course, we that early trauma, we have trauma, and part of the purpose of an echo, these parts, is to create amnesia and allow us to get on with our lives. So we block them out. Somebody comes out, oh, I've no idea what happened pre-6. It doesn't matter. They're there in your subconscious, and the echoes will take you to them to find out, you know, these early events. You know.
Yeah. So you actually answered the next question, but what I just wanted to reiterate and add is, what I often find is those, you know, the core beliefs. You know, I might have a belief that I'm never going to get ahead at this job, right? This company's never going to let me progress. It's a belief, it's a limiting belief, but it's not necessarily a core belief. And I look at that as like a small twig on a tree. But when you get down to the base of the tree, when you get down to the trunk, those kinds of core beliefs, as you said, affect everything. They become the lens and the color that you put on, and that's how you see the world.
Absolutely.
Then, as you say, trauma, which continues to offer itself up and repeat itself over and over to give us the opportunity to overcome, which we weren't able to first time, and we're often not able to. When we use techniques like this, it gives us the opportunity to really clean the slate and to really allow it to go from trauma and protection into wisdom and to development and to post-traumatic growth and resilience, et cetera. And what
absolutely.
And what Suzanne said too, is often those parts of ourselves, I mean, the beauty of this work is the self-empowerment aspect of it. It's not the therapist practitioner. It's really coming from the person who's able to go back and gain gifts from those younger selves that they had shut off, the creativity, the whimsy, the playfulness, and all those things that trauma shuts down. When we're able to go back and resolve with those beliefs, those things can reemerge. So it's such powerful work.
Yeah. Well, and even regular EFT can also help people access that wisdom too.
Sure, absolutely.
Sometimes clients, after they'll do the tapping, will go, "Oh my God, I realize I'm, you know, this has stopped me or whatever." And so that wisdom can come through in regular EFT as well. But Matrix is definitely the most elegant way to do it.
Well, what I say, Suzanne, when I'm doing EFT, the way I teach this now is once we've gone through the movie technique, I'll just say I'll ask the client there, once the trauma's gone, so that we broke open that trauma capsule and they can see it from the new perspective. And I'll just ask at that point, if there's a belief or decision you made that day, what was it? And they always know it. And when they say that, So can you see that in your life?
Yeah.
That, oh my God, it's everywhere. Once they've realized it and verbalized it, they can see it everywhere. Okay, take me to another memory where that happened, and they just pop up, you know. But asking that belief a decision, it gets to places where you wouldn't get without asking that question, because they're not looking for that belief a decision. They're looking for what they think needs to be, you know, oh, I had a car crash. I've got to look for the car crashes, and they're not there.
Right.
But yeah. So a quick example of that, there was a guy with PTSD of a car crash. He was 45. It was when he was 40. When we worked through the car crash, he saw himself in this kind of position. And I said, is that like the impact? He said, no, I don't know. I just see myself like this. I said, well, follow that energy back. And he saw himself 6 years old. He's in the corner like this, and his dad's hitting him with a stick. And I said, what's the connection between the car crash and your dad hitting you with the stick? And he said, oh, I know exactly what it is. I have this belief that bad things will happen to me for no reason when it's not my fault. I said, can you see that in your life? Oh yeah, my whole life. So again, it's not like he's law of attracting the car crash, but when the car crash happens, he stamps on that, the meaning, bad things has happened to me. Again, and it's not my fault for no reason. Yeah. So, you know, that's what we do. And that's what you couldn't figure out until you ask that question, see what the belief is, and then you see the connection and where it all, you know, connects together. And it is fascinating.
Yeah, it is. Suzanne, you wanted to ask him about the one belief.
Yeah. So you said that one of the biggest breakthroughs in Matrix recently has been the understanding that one major negative belief becomes the controlling factor for much of our lives, and that it tends to be very specific, and all the other sub-beliefs and issues arise from this one core negative belief. Can you say more about how you came to that conclusion and how you would work with someone to get down to that core belief?
Okay. Like many things with Matrix, it's you just have a learning experience. And then it's like, oh, wow, it's so obvious once you've learned. I mean, like a simple one, clients used to be okay. Then they step into the Matrix and they go into meltdown sometimes. It's like, why is that happening? Then you realize they stepped in and became the echo, not just being in the memory. And then it's obvious. And with the one belief, it was an old friend of the family, actually, called Diana. She'd just been given a promotion. She was a PA in a company and got promoted to the CEO of the company as his PA. Now, as she was just come to Christmas, running on adrenaline, she kind of took on the job and she was fine, but then stopped for Christmas. And when she came out of the fight and flight of day-to-day life, she suddenly just felt this constant, huge, big, heavy ball in her stomach. So she came round and we followed that, the first memory. It goes to, she's in the bedroom. And it was interesting because it was dark. It was like, she says, I don't know where I am. It's just dark. And we're like, well, okay. I said, turn the light on. I said, I see what's happened now. The little girl, it's at night. She sat in bed crying. And when she asked her what's wrong, said, I have to go to Poole, which is a seaside town on the south of England tomorrow, and to see grandma with the family, and grandma doesn't love me. So it went from that, as we did some work there, went to the next memory. She's in the garden. So the echo, this has gone echo to echo now. And she said, I don't even know how I met this memory. It's a really happy memory. I'm playing with my brother and sister in the garden. And when she steps into the memory to have a look what happens, she sees that she walks in front of the swing and the swing hits her. So we went to another memory, and what begins to emerge, the belief is, and he talks about which are common beliefs and then, not so common. Her belief was, when things are going well, I'll screw it up for everybody else. So a common one is, when things are going well, it's going to go wrong. It's quite a common belief, yeah? But hers is not that. Hers is, when things are going well, I'll screw it up for everybody else. Mm. So going to holiday, she was worried that she's going to mess it up because grandma doesn't love her. Oh. So that's how she would mess it up for the family. Her brother and sister playing, they're a bit older than her. They're having fun in the garden, walks in front of the swing. So she messed it up for everybody. And then she ends up doing some like 20 sessions, and this belief is always there. She got a job in a bank. Loved it, loved the team. A few weeks in, one day, the books don't balance. Everybody stays behind. They realised it was Diana that had messed up. So what happens then? You start to worry about it. A week later, it happens again. So imagine the anxiety every day, you're just worrying, I hope I don't mess up, I hope I don't mess up. And what's going to happen when you're thinking that all day in a fight and flight? Yeah, you mess up. So she left the job. Even though she loved it and the people, she had to leave the job. It just goes on and on. Sports day, she was in the relay team, fastest runner, star pupil, brilliant at sports. When they did any major competition, she would always set off too quickly, too slow, drop the baton. She'd mess it up for the team. And it just goes on and on. I mean, memory after memory, all with that stamp on there. Some she would create, some attract, some, just happened, and she would put that meaning on there. And she found the cause of this was actually she was born on New Year's Eve, on Christmas Eve.
Oh.
Yeah. So basically, your brother and sister were 3 or 4, excited about Christmas. She arrives, she messes Christmas up. So even as a baby, you pick up on the energy, you make it mean that, even from that day. Or then you attract, you create, look for proof, and you react. So some of the situations, because of these memories, she ended up with anxiety, constant anxiety. She was on anti-anxiety medication. She was on antidepressants. At one stage, going back, she had endless stomach issues, relationship issues. Another memory where she had she got pregnant, and the family's so excited, she lost the baby. And when that happened, she blamed it on herself, because when she was in her teenagers, she had a termination. She blamed it on that. So she's looking for proof to blame every situation. Everybody's excited, I've messed up for everybody again. So, yeah, we've known this girl for many years, and she's lovely and great company. And we'd often say, like, you want to come here with us, or go to that meal? And she'd often make excuses. After she'd done all this work, we saw a lot more of her. And one day I said to her, why, Diana, why would you never come out with us? She said, well, I was just worried you guys always seem so happy together. I was worried that if I came out with you, I'd mess it up for you all. Mm. So you see, these beliefs, and you think, that's not a worse belief, but it starts to creep into every area of your life. Every single area, from relationships to friendships to health, and everything gets, manifest. So that was my breakthrough with the one belief, seeing that. And then, of course, the next question is, oh, what's mine? Yeah, so a very good friend of mine who's a hugely experienced EFT and Matrix practitioner was actually away, a gang of us on holiday, and one night was having a drink later on, and we said, okay, let's find ours. So within 10 minutes, I located mine. And when I saw it, I'm just like, ding, 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 like, 50 memories pop up. Every single one is an exact replication of that belief. And then we found his, and it's just like, once you see it, it's just like, how did I never see this before? It's happened so often, throughout my life. And literally, I could just go through memory after memory. Every memory resonates with exactly that. The way I react as well. And I looked previous to that, when that happened. And it's to do with being second best to the top dog, is my belief. And if somebody's chosen over me, like the top dog's chosen over me, I would react very badly. So it's not being no good, and it's very specific. It has to be somebody that I regard as very powerful and above me, and when they're choosing over me, that's my thing. And it seems a strange one, doesn't it? But it's so everything I've ever done since primary school. Like, my best friend was always like the leader of the gang. Yeah, secondary school, best friend, leader of the gang, and I was like the sidekick. I was always the Robin to Batman, the you name it, the Indian dude to the Lone Ranger. So I always recreated that with friendships, even with my marriage. I married a very powerful woman, but it was very detrimental to me, because I'd be put down and kept in my place and wasn't allowed to excel. So, it seems like nothing, but it massively affected my life. So
let me just ask you, Karl, that discovery for you, for people that are listening and watching, is there a process or tips or, how do you drill down and find that for yourself? For those people who are going, oh, I don't know what mine is.
Yeah. Oh, I love helping people find theirs, and you can usually do it pretty quickly. And a lot of it is going to echo, and just seeing what that common belief is. And it soon manifests. And then, so that's one echo stream, which could be just a sub-belief.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, you know, you go to a few echo streams, you find the common denominator. And there's a new understanding I've had as well. One of our helpers in the Midlands where I train, a lady called Denny, again, huge experience. She's helped me on about 20 courses over the last 5 years. And she talks about a fundamental weave, which I didn't understand where she's coming from at first. But Denny was given up for adoption. Her mother, and she's okay talking about this, she's absolutely fine. Given up for adoption, you know, her mother tried to, you know, kill her in the womb. So Denny's what called a belief bomb went off very early in her life. So you can have quite a lot of threads where each thread is you know, there's a lot of memories in that belief thread. So it's not just, you know, there's one core belief that runs through it, but the threads, you know, other threads. So you'll see, if you notice that over the years, Greg, Susanna, some people seem to have this endless amount of things. They work at clearing their issues, but there's always more there. Other people seem to clear quite quickly. And I think that this is, you know, one of the reasons why. How early did these, you know, belief bombs go off, where exploded into like shrapnel everywhere, with sub-beliefs, that each of those sub-beliefs can end up with, you know, quite big streams of memories. So, yeah, it is a fascinating area. But I've come to believe now that actually, you know, we actually incarnated. That was always going to be our belief. When we came into this body and we were born, that was always going to be the thing. Yeah, which it gets into quite a spiritual view, but you just see the proof of it endlessly. You know, it's in the womb. You can chase it back there. And recently we've been focused a little bit on past lives a bit more, and we've seen it there as well. That, you know, the beliefs we kind of go from life to life, and if we don't evolve through this, we just get, you know, karma is not a punishment. It's we get to come back until we evolve through that issue. And so I think this is, you know, especially for practitioners, I think this is like the ultimate thing to do. Your clients come, I've got this phobia, I've got this allergy, you know, they just want resolution of that problem. I've got this relationship problem, help me with that. They don't come, you know, to fix their whole lives. But the people I've seen, you know, keep working and working, what happens is you clear an area of that one belief, and it allows you to move forward in your life. And things can change, like relationships can change, friendships change, everything, the work you do changes, but a whole lot of new problems come up as you've evolved, and so you clear those and you're allowed to move forward again. And then, you know, and so to me it becomes a bit like of a life's journey, a life purpose, and ultimately, you know, that issue becomes your gift to the world, is the way I see it. You know, I'll give you an example with Sasha Allenby, who did the first book with me. Sasha went from a place where she had fibromyalgia and bipolar and, you know, multiple allergies, that, you know, she started to work through her issues and clear things. She realized that, you know, ultimately being a practitioner or a trainer was not her pathway. Yeah, that was just, you know, a step in the direction. And now she lives in New York. She has a publishing company. Now, her belief that caused a lot of problems was around the world's dangerous because it's not safe to express herself as a child. What does she do now? She ghostwrites. She helps the publisher. She helps people get their word out. And that's means, like, you know, I think I talked to you this before about, you know, the 5 gateways of matrix reimprinting. The 5th gateway being finding your life purpose and your gift to share with the world. You know, so that's what I say. It absolutely fascinates me. And when you do find that belief, you know.
The thing that's been really helpful with that for me in sharing with clients and practitioners is it takes the pressure off. I often refer to it as that traumatic onset of your inner guru. It's always going to be there to teach you, show you your next step of evolution. So, you know, so often we see people that are like, oh, I should be done with this by now. I can't believe it's coming back again. But if we look at it as that inner guru, as that inner teacher, you know, maybe it doesn't hit us with a 2x4 anymore. Maybe it taps us on our back. And as we heal, it becomes less intense or less frequent. But it's always going to be there to show us our next phase of evolution. It's like, oh, there you are again. Let's see what there is to learn. And it shifts the whole dynamic from self-incrimination to potential and growth, as you were saying.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you.
And as we go along that path, things start to clear up as you start to clear that belief. The anxiety goes, the depression goes, the relationship problems. It's always there as that guideway, as that ultimate light which directs us in our lives. But everything starts to clear up, and life just gets better. And I actually like with practitioners now, see for your own work. You can even just keep looking at that problem, looking at all the problems. Or why don't you just go to your belief and work through that, because then everything else will start to clear up, because that's where the problems stem from in the first place. So we as you know, we have a big ethos and swapping sessions. So and some of the other practitioners, they've swapped religiously, some of them every week for 5 years. They have the different swap partners, and they've really progressed so far.
Right.
I just love to see that. It's magical. So I think the reason, because obviously with Matrix, all the concepts, there's nothing new there. It's parts, it's inner child work. It's just a different way of working, and a lot of things, people like it's a nice, simple way of working. Yeah. It's like a complete package in a nice, simple way. But I've never heard this about the one belief before. That's something that was kind of new to me. I don't know about you guys, huge experience in many areas. But I've never heard this before. And I was like, oh, maybe it's not true, because I've not heard it before. But I think that, you know what I mean? Because everything else, you think well, there's nothing new under the sun. But I think what Matrix gives you, with the ability to go from echo to echo and understand, because you're looking for the beliefs, other therapies, I don't think they were looking or didn't have that ability to go echo to echo like we do, which then uncovers these beliefs. So it's very exciting, and it's one area I'd really like to take forward at some stage. Maybe do a specialist workshop in this area to help people find their one beliefs, because I just get such a buzz from helping people find them. Sometimes people, it's just crystal clear. Yeah, they can do a few sessions of Matrix. It's like it's there. I can see it already. Other times it's a bit more hidden and not, a bit more obscure. But we've all got them. Have you found yours, Craig?
You know what? For me, it's interesting, because my early traumas were always around not feeling safe, and so the decisions were around not deserving it, or I don't have to have it. Right. So it's kind of fine tuning, the world isn't safe, but it was even more than the world isn't safe. It was almost like I don't deserve to feel safe.
Well, okay.
Right. So what was fascinating through that was the recreation of unsafe moments, relationships, etc. Until one day it was I was actually reading Bessel van der Kolk, and it was just, what am I doing? What is my whole life purpose? And what has been the most important theme through my career has been about making people feel safe. So literally it had become my vocation, it had become the theme, it had become as you said, not only the trauma early, but also the vision for what my purpose and why I'm doing courses like this, right? It's no accident.
Yeah. So your issue becomes your gift to the world.
Yeah. So
thank Suzanne,
you so much. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Suzanne, I was just wondering if you'd looked or phoned your...
Oh, yes.
What's yours, Suzanne?
For mine, it's like the only way it's a safety thing too, but the only way I can stay safe is to take care of everyone else.
Okay, yeah. That's Tywin, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Was, not much more, because I'm not in it anymore.
So much. So much.
But my whole career choices in the past, I became an Episcopal priest. The whole idea in ministry is you have to be there for everyone 24/7, et cetera, et cetera. And the only person the only other person that I think is starting to come into this and might be interesting for you two to meet is Mark Wolin, who does the intergenerational trauma stuff in America. And he tries to go down to a core belief that is a result of intergenerational trauma that has set you onto that. And he has a whole process for getting to that.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, there's so many wonderful therapies emerging around the world in different disciplines, and yeah, there's some great work. No, I've not come across this book yet. No.
Right. So it sounds like you are among the pioneers yet again in terms of bringing this new principle forward. So
look at that,
Karl.
No longer the Robin. You are the Batman.
You are the top dog.
There you go. That's awesome. Karl, thank you so much. This has been really, really fabulous. And, you know,
great to talk to you both.
Yeah, to have a conversation about trauma, which always feels heavy at the outset, still gets so infused with possibility and joy and healing. And as you said, you know,
potential.
Potential.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you know, if we could just wave these traumas away and, you know, magic stick, to me it'd be a great loss, because within the traumas there is, you know, your whole life purpose and learning and wisdom, and that's what I like, you know, not just to make them go away, but actually to explore them and see, you know, why you were here. And that's to me is just magical.
Yeah, thank you. So a big contribution as we move into the next offering of Tapping Out of Trauma is being able to learn how to work effectively with them, and then being able to, once we develop that safety and rapport and using effective methods and knowing what to do when something's too big and making it gentler and safer. But out of that, as we start to dig in, becomes this work of understanding, of meaning, of life purpose. And so thank you so much for really coalescing the understanding of the connection between trauma and belief creation. And I know we're just scratching the surface, but I think it was a great start for people. Yeah?
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you both. Thank you, Suzanne. Lovely to meet you last and talk to you. And
likewise.
Craig, always great to see you, Craig.
Always good to see you. Always wonderful. Thank you so much. And I think
Pleasure.
we call it a wrap. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Bye.